Welcome, everybody, to podcast 189. We have Professor Crawford, Wes Crawford from Purdue University. He's a professor emeritus from there and an author with us and a good friend of mine as we've worked together with field engineering over the years. And we're going to talk today about the role of a construction surveyor and field engineer in this industry and why it's crucial to the success of our industry. So stay with us.
This is the Elevate Construction Podcast, delivering remarkable content for workers, leaders, and companies in construction wanting to take their next step. Get ready to step out of your comfort zone with Jason Schroeder as he encourages you to do better, live a remarkable life, and expect more. Let's go.
Welcome, everybody. Again, like I said, we've got Professor Crawford here. Can you say hi to the audience? Anything you want to do to welcome them?
Hello. I hope that you're all having a great day and you're keeping safe and enjoying the start of a new year.
Yeah, that's a big one. It's going to be a really neat year. I'm looking forward to the summer. I'm really hoping the vaccine and other things really do the trick. Go ahead.
So do I. I'm very much looking forward to it. As Jason knows, I'm a transplant person, so high at risk. So the sooner I get the vaccine, the easier life is going to be. So it's wonderful.
Yeah, and before we were on the show, he and I were talking about his motorhome. You used to take a lot of trips, and you're kind of cooped up in the state right now. So that thing needs to get some miles on it. So I totally agree. So a little bit of an introduction, and I'd like to ask you, Professor, what do you love after I give you a brief introduction? So again, Professor Wes Crawford is a professor emeritus from Purdue University. I've seen him teach there. He's done courses and classes with Hensel Phelps for I think probably decades, but when I was there years and years. Had lots of experience with him. He actually invited me out to speak for an hour at one time. We've had a lot of fun together. He is the author of what I call the Field Engineering Methods Manual, but Construction Surveying and Layout, the third edition. And he, go ahead.
Go ahead.
So I'm sorry. I'm really keen into making sure I don't interrupt people. So he's worked a lot with Hensel Phelps, especially with this manual. And actually, as you tell us what you love in this little introduction, I'd also love to hear kind of the overview of how you got started with that book.
Well, how about if I started how I got started in surveying first?
Okay, let's do it.
Okay, so I graduated from high school in Pennsylvania, and I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. So I chose to go to Penn State and study drafting and design because I had done a little bit of that in high school. Well, I started at one of their campuses, and that fall I was helping a friend of mine build a hunting shack, hunting cabin, whatever. And he was sitting there, or we were working, and he said, boy, if I were a young man, I'd go into surveying because when the weather's great, the surveyors can be outside. And when the weather's bad, the surveyors can be inside. They get to be in the woods and out in the fields and so on all the time. And I thought, boy, that sounded like a good deal to me. So I immediately went back to my campus and started looking to find out where I could study surveying. And it happened that Penn State had a program at what was called then the Monalto campus of Penn State. And so I transferred that next semester from where I was at to that campus. And I spent 2 years there getting an associate degree in surveying engineering is what they actually called it. Wow. Then I got a job with a construction company, and actually in the summer between those 2 years, and that made me even more want to do surveying. And then when I graduated, I went back to work for that company for a few years on a construction project. It was a 13-mile long railroad relocation, and we were building a 300-foot tall earthen dam on the North Branch of the Potomac River. And so I got into that, and at that time, my wife was going to school for a 4-year degree in business education. And I thought, I'd sure like to have a little bit more education in surveying. So I asked my professors at Penn State, I said, is there anybody that has a 4-year degree? And they said, well, you're in luck. It so happens that Purdue University just started a new program called land surveying, and that would be a good place for you to go to expand your education in surveying and knowledge. So I applied, and they accepted me. I think because they were a new program, so they needed students, because my grades were not the greatest, but they were okay, and they let me in. And so then in fall of 1973, I went to Purdue University, and the following year, my wife and I got married, and in 1975, I graduated with that surveying degree. And she had come out here with the intent of us staying in this area for 1 year. Well, it's now 46 years later, and we're still here.
That's funny.
So she was working, and I was working for a city engineering office, and she was working at a local community college teaching, and she got to know the professor of drafting there, and they fired an individual on a Thursday, and on Friday he called me and said, would you be interested in teaching? And so I went down and interviewed, and actually they had me teach part-time for 6 months, and then they hired me to teach full-time, and I taught there for 2 years, and then Purdue University needed somebody. So I went over and started teaching at Purdue, and that was in 1977. So I taught there for 40 years.
Wow.
That's how I got into surveying and how I continued through surveying.
Well, that's and then led into some of the other experiences that we're going to talk about. One thing that if those little opportunities hadn't happened, I'm not being fatalistic when I say that, that would have had a major effect in construction, because I think there's a tendency to head down the road of technology without some of these basics, and having these basics in this book is huge. So we're going to talk more about that as we go on. I do want to do 2 or 3 items of business here as we get started. So I usually talk about what I'm excited about in life to kick off the podcast. For me, and I'm going to ask you that same thing, I'm excited about the possibilities of getting the message out to the masses for field engineering. As I'm going around and doing more consulting with clients, Professor, I'm noticing there's a lot of people that will reach back out to me and say, oh, we don't have field engineers. We didn't even know about the position. And I'm thinking, no, this is a game changer. Or even if they don't have field engineers, the right way to do construction surveying and layout, even if you're having somebody do it the right way as a third party, is huge. I mean, it reduces the burden of a super so much. So I'm excited about where the book, obviously completely under your control, but where the book can go with the 4th edition that you're writing, and then any of the other dissemination of the material. So that's what I'm excited about. What are you excited about this year?
I'm excited that our future is good. I think that there's going to be great opportunities for people as the country goes forward. I'm excited for construction because everywhere I look and everything I read, construction is going on everywhere.
Yeah.
Going to be plenty of opportunities for construction companies in cities. There's going to be plenty of opportunities for construction companies on the infrastructure. There's going to be new bridges and new roads that have to be built. So there's going to be plenty of opportunities, and anybody who is wanting to get into construction, there is a career path there for you if you want it.
Amen.
And you're only limited by how much passion you have for it and how much you're willing to put into it to become successful. You don't have to have a college degree. You don't have to have an associate degree. But you do have to have a hard work ethic. And if you have that hard work ethic and you have the passion to learn, there are great opportunities, because people that have the college degrees, they may have that piece of paper, but that doesn't mean that that they have the passion that's needed to be successful. And so I like the opportunities. That's what excites me about construction surveying.
Yeah. And I love your message. I don't know how it is in your area, but you said you're reading a lot about it. In Phoenix, we're not slowing down at all for construction. In fact, as an industry, we're busier than we were last year, and it's looking like it'll continue at least for another 2 years at that same pace. And we need trained professionals. And you've heard me on podcasts and other places. The foundations that you've put in that book, especially chapters like chapter 1 and 2 about communication, how to be professional, disciplined, work with drive, passion. These are the exact tools that people need. And yes, college can help, but you're right. They can do it without it. So we're going to get right into this. One little bit of feedback that I've received on the podcast. We get feedback all the time, but I got 2 short messages on LinkedIn, so I'll mention them here. I do that every time. One person said, "Jason, I enjoy your podcast and I'm currently reading your book. Keep up the great work." And then I got one this is the shortest one I've ever gotten. "I like your podcast." So I always attempt to fit those in because I get a bunch of them. We've had feedback probably every episode for quite some time now. So for those of you who send it my way, thank you. Those are paydays. So let's get right into our podcast here. We have to make sure we cover the book and cover some challenges. At the end of this, Professor, I'd like us to challenge the listeners to do something. But I would love it if you'd finish your introductory story. How did you get in with Hensel Phelps and the sabbaticals and in writing that book, if you don't mind sharing that?
Well, in the early 80s, after I started teaching and my wife was teaching, so we both had our summers off. And because we had our summers off and we were young and we didn't have any children, we started looking west and thought, we want to go see some national parks. So we started traveling. And so in 1980, I think we went for 4 weeks, and in 81, we went for 6 weeks, and we just kept traveling every summer. And in 82, I think it was, I had a student who had gone to work for Hensel Phelps. And I thought, well, I'm going to stop and see him while I'm traveling out. He was one of my very best students. He was president of our construction club. And so I thought, I'll just stop and see him while we're traveling out here. I knew where Hensel Phelps happened to be, in Greeley, Colorado. So we were headed out to Rocky Mountain National Park. And so one day while we were traveling through, I looked up Hensel Phelps and drove down to 620 6th Avenue in Greeley, Colorado. And I walked in and I asked for the president. Well, the president wasn't available, but his assistant was, and his name was Joe Slobodjan.
Okay.
And Joe listened to me and said, I think it would be a good idea to have somebody like you come around here. So I had talked to him and said, hey, why don't you have faculty internships? Why don't you give opportunities for faculty to come and visit job sites and learn? Because here I was, a young faculty member who had construction experience, but I wanted to remain current. I wanted to remain relevant in my knowledge of what was going on in the construction site. So the following year, they hired a different faculty member, but in 1984, they hired me for the summer, and I spent the summer working in Denver on the Tabor Center, which was a 32-story cast-in-place structure.
Wow. And
I chased the drywaller. Basically, they had me do an analysis of their production rate, and I found out within a couple of days that at the present rate that they were going and the number of people that they had, it was going to be 6 months before they got done, and their deadline was 2 months.
Oh, wow.
So I started saying, hey, we need to get him to hire more people. So I put the figures together and they hired more. So they liked what I did that summer. So the following summer, I talked to him. I said, hey, I'd like to come again. So they hired me another summer. And then I said, hey, I'm going to be taking a sabbatical here in 1987. I said, would you be willing to hire me for a year? And they did. And so they assigned me to a project down in to their Clearwater construction company down in Austin, Texas, and I was down there, and that was about the time that I was able to become friends with Jason. He was on a project there in Austin, I believe, and I remember walking onto the job site, and I looked and I saw this guy out there who had all of his surveying equipment on, and in one of his bags on his pouches, he had my surveying book that he had, and well, I guess that wasn't right. I'm off track a little bit because that was before. I guess I met you later. So
yeah, that was later, but it was in Austin. So I was going to say when I was introduced to the book was in Austin, but your journey started there many years ahead of time. I don't know if it was 10 years or 12, but
right.
Yeah.
I met you in the 90s. So
yeah.
Anyway, so I went to spend a year-long sabbatical with Hensel Phelps with their Clearwater branch in Austin. And then I continued to work on projects for them through the next few years. And then I talked to the president and said, hey, the field engineers out here on the job site that I talked to say, hey, we need a manual. We need something that teaches what we're doing to the new people that are coming in. So I talked to the president of Hensel Phelps, Bob Titon, and said, hey, I'd like to write a manual. And he said, okay, I'll sponsor that. And then they changed to presidents to Jerry Morganson. And he continued to hire me. So in 92, 93, and 94, I went to Greeley, Colorado, and spent my summer there going to projects, talking to field engineers, hiring my drafting people, illustrators to illustrate the book. I would go to projects and take pictures of field engineers doing work. So I'd take a picture of them doing a chalk line or putting a point in or setting up an instrument. And so then I gave those pictures to these illustrators, and they projected these slide images onto a wall, and then they went over on the wall and they sketched what they could see on the wall. And then they asked me, well, what do you want them to show? What's the thing you want them to see? And I would say, well, I'll do this. And they would go ahead and do all that. And then they would electronically scan that image in, and that's how the images in the book were created.
Wow.
So I continued to work with Hensel Phelps like that. And then in 98, 99, I spent another year-long sabbatical with them. That one was a traveling sabbatical. My wife and I started here in Indiana in the summer of 98 and went immediately to Colorado, spent some time at Hensel Phelps in Colorado, and then they assigned me to go to Anaheim, California. And we spent 4 weeks at the Anaheim Convention Center there. And our 2 young children at that time were with us. We were in a small motorhome, small RV, and we were living out of that. And the only place to camp in Anaheim was at Disney World. So my kids were spoiled by spending a month at Disney World that summer.
That's funny.
So then we went up to California, up to Northern California, to San Francisco area. We spent 3 weeks in the San Francisco area, then went from there over to French. I can't remember the last name of the town, but we went over there and spent some more time, and we continued traveling, went from there up to Colorado and then down to Arizona, and spent weeks then in Arizona in Scottsdale, and then went from there to Houston, and then from there to Dallas. And I was only supposed to be in Dallas for 2 weeks, but they got the Skylink at Dallas Fort Worth Air Force Base, or Dallas DFW Airport, and I spent 6 months in Dallas helping to design and work with the control and work with the field engineers on that particular project. Then we went from there to Virginia, and we spent the rest of 3 months or so at various projects at the Pentagon and so on in the Washington, D.C. area and throughout Virginia. So we spent a year long on that. So that's kind of a history up through my sabbaticals, and then I continued to spend time with Hensel Phelps after that for many, many years, up until 2015 or so, 15 or 16, going out and doing training sessions and all over the United States with Hensel Phelps.
Yeah. And your book Made It My Way. I can't remember what edition it was on, but when I joined Phelps in 2001, and I think it was 2003, maybe 3-4, when I really started paying attention to it. And I remember there's this shift, and I'm not just saying this because you're on the podcast, but where Jason doesn't have really a moral and ethical code or like a really, good foundation for work, how to do the technical jobs of a field engineer. And so I'm struggling. And then I get two things in life, like this moral side of things, and then your book. So I get these two sources and I start diving into reading it, and everything just flipped. I go from making mistakes to not making mistakes. And I just thought that was fantastic. And in fact, and you've seen this over and over, that I distill down from your book these lists of commandments. Like always traverse within this order of accuracy, or tie into two benchmarks, use 3-wire leveling, estimate to the nearest thousands, don't burn a foot. These commandments, if companies, groups, teams, and I even remember at Hensel Phelps when they adopted those, the mistakes went from a considerable amount to every now and then, right? So it's a really big deal. So real quick, what are some of your favorite aspects in working with field engineers all those years? What was the thing that you loved about that?
The thing that I love the most with working with field engineers as well as with students was when the light bulb turned on. You can tell people how to do something, and they'll sit there and they will ponder it maybe, or they won't even pay attention. But at some point when they start thinking, all of a sudden, it's just like a light bulb turns on and they say, wow, this is right. This is what we need to do. This is what I need to do to be successful. So whenever they buy in and the light bulb turns on and they go from not being successful, not being passionate about construction, to all of a sudden saying, wow, this is a great thing. This is what I want to do the rest of my life. Not field engineering necessarily, but construction, and get to enjoy enjoy construction, because, many people in life are paper pushers and all they do is push paper around. But when you're in construction, when you're done with the project, you can walk by and you can look up and see this bridge or this road or this building that you've constructed. And I was part of that.
Yeah.
You've left something behind. And I think that all of us throughout our life should leave something behind. And it might be in our work, but it also is in our personal lives. So anything we can do to improve life, whether it's a construction project or to improve somebody that we're working with, I think is a success. And we all need to go that route. I mean, every semester I would tell my students, I would say, during your career, you're going to earn a lot of money. You're going to have a lot of opportunities. But the thing that's going to satisfy you the most is helping others.
Yeah.
I mean, whether it's helping them in their careers or turning the light bulb on to knowledge or turning the light bulb on to being charitable. I mean, the thing that makes me feel the best right now in life is when I can do something for somebody else.
Yeah.
I'm at the stage now where my teaching is pretty much ended, but now I can volunteer. And I was doing that a lot before the COVID started, but right now I'm the president of a land trust. I've been president for almost 2 years, and during that time, we've added over 600 acres of land that's now protected and preserved here in West Central Indiana.
Wow.
And we've added 400 members to our membership, and our organization has grown from $9 million in assets to over $12 million in assets. So working with the people who are part of the land trust and knowing that we're doing something that's going to impact future generations just leaves a warm spot in your feelings, and your heart feels good. It's such a exciting thing to do things that help others.
Yeah, I agree. And, you know, like you said, it's not even just for field engineering. When we do and I still love doing field engineer boot camps. I love doing those. We teach them about how to be a good husband and wife, how to be a good family member. We teach them about balance. I really feel like when companies leverage your book and that position, the position of either a and to your point, you can be a surveyor, right? You can work for a third party. You can be in detailing. You can be a field engineer. You can even be a project engineer that steps out of the office, right? There's a number of different positions, but I really have observed lately that if a superintendent doesn't get that experience, they have a hard time, meaning they'll get stuck because they never learned the actual piecing together of the components in a wall, the layout principles, the organization principles, the visualization in their mind with detailing and drafting and lift drawings, personal organization is probably the biggest one for me. And so when I think about the benefit that this book and this role has in construction, it trains future supers or any position, right? If the people that get to general superintendent or operations manager or director quickest, from my observation in my sphere, are the ones who had time in construction surveying and layout. And so I think it's a strategic advantage in a company to build their own people. I mean, any thoughts that you would add?
I 100% believe that building your own people is the best thing because they know the systems from right off the bat. And if you can teach them the systems and they spend time with others who know the systems, they're going to embed that into their own personalities, and they're going to think like the other people on the job as far as construction. They won't think about other things related to that, but when they're unrelated to construction, but they will build similar and they'll think of the same critical items at the same times. And so all that creates a project that runs smooth. And construction surveying is wonderful whenever buildings are square and they're plumb and they're in the right location. But your life is also wonderful if you've got things organized so that you can create yourself the opportunities to succeed. Excuse me. I'm not used to talking all the time, so I need to take a little drink of water.
No, I love it. And to your point, when we one of the key things we focus on at Elevate Construction is we say respect the workers, train leaders to preserve families, right? And if we have a building that's nice and square and a bunch of new construction professionals that are organized, that can visualize things in their minds, that have the training, that have that builder experience, then they can then go on to future positions and lead teams with a work-life balance. If we don't do it, we're going to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars from contingency, waste countless hours, and run around ignoring our families. I mean, and that seems fatalistic or dogmatic on my part, but I've seen it over and over again. And I think the main thing is personal organization. When you taught us about how to use your field book, keep to-do lists, be organized, that's step one for anyone. And so I see your vision with that.
Thank you.
So here's what I'd like to talk about to kind of close this down. What is the legacy? And I'm going to ask you to kind of brag about yourself or talk about yourself a little bit. I hope that's not too uncomfortable, but your legacy with this book, where would you like to see it go from here? Meaning, like you said, you're a professor emeritus. You're doing a lot of giving back. Let's say 10, 20 years down the road, what would you like to see happen with your work?
Well, I would like to see it continue to be used and improving young people that are going into construction. You know, there's a lot of technology out there today, and we've got a lot of people who are button pushers. They can set up this total station or use this GPS, and they can go out there and locate things. But once that system goes down, they can't do anything. In fact, I know of numerous instances, and I'm sure Jason does as well, and some of you who are listening, of where the GPS went down and they had to quit for the day because they couldn't locate anything. So I think that learning the basics, learning how to make measurements with a tape, with a chain, with turning angles and so on, is always going to be a part of what we do. You know, the big projects, they're going to use the technology. But the little projects, I think even for years and years to come, they're going to be still using 3, 4, 5 triangles, which don't lie to you. They're exact every single time if you do it right.
Yep.
Elevations, they're going to have elevations that they're going to need, and they're going to have to use the fundamentals to do that. So I would hope that in 10 years, my book is still relevant. In 20 years, it's still relevant. In 30 years, it's still relevant, even in the United States, as well as throughout the world, you know, and in parts of South America or in Africa or in Asia, where there's barely electricity at this time in history. There's still going to be a need for people to build structures, and they're going to want to get them square and plumb and exactly at the right locations. So I would hope that my book, as it continues to evolve, will continue to be used. I've been working on the 4th edition for too long. I'm spending time on it. One of the things that I've done is I've made the book available in print. It's also available as an EPUB. And right now I've got several people working. I've got an illustrator that's doing some work on the 4th edition, but I've also got an illustrator who's going back and working on colorizing all the illustrations in the 3rd edition of the book, just to make it a little more attractive so that some people will pick it up and they'll look at it and maybe learn from it. Because my idea behind the book was lots of pictures, lots of illustrations, and hopefully those illustrations cause somebody to say, hey, what's going on? And all of a sudden, because they see this illustration, they read the text next to it. And that's where they learn. They can see it, and then they can learn, they can read it, and they learn it. Because, you know, if people just see things or just hear things, they forget. If they see things, they remember. And if they do things, they understand. So this book is kind of a see, do, understand type of text. And I think that even 15, 20 years from now, it is still going to be applicable. I hope to get out the 4th edition sometime in the next year or two, hopefully. And hopefully it will bring in new people who might be interested in this type of activity and this as their stepping stone into the wonderful world of construction.
Yeah, I love that. And I share that. I'll do everything that I can on my part to make that happen, especially with these boot camps that have evolved from some of your trainings. So I'd like to close. So first of all, thank you. This has been really neat. I think we've established, why we need field engineers, why we need construction surveyors, why it's impactful for companies, what the legacy needs to be. So I'll give you the final words here, if that's okay. And you can modify this however you want, but what challenge would you give to anybody listening? And are there any closing thoughts that you have?
My challenge to anybody listening is to be your best. I mean, a lot of people go through life and they bounce around and they don't ever become their best. They don't ever put their best foot forward. They become involved in the electronics of today, and they spend time wasting they waste their time on games and things when they could be learning. There's so much to learn, and life gets shorter every single day. There's not a single hour that happened yesterday that you will ever get back. There's not a single day that you're ever going to get back. Once you go to bed that night, you're never getting that one back. So make the most of every single hour that you have. Don't waste time on things that you can't control. Spend time on things you can control. There's only one person in life that can change your life, and that's you. You can't change somebody else's. Somebody can't change you. It's you that you have to make a commitment. If you want to improve, if you want to succeed, if you want to move up the ladder, then there's only one person that's responsible for that, and that's you. And I always said in my classes, the burden of responsibility is on the shoulders of the person who's trying to learn. And, I could give them all the instruction possible, but the burden of responsibility is on the person itself, on their mind that they set forth that they want to improve. And the thing is, everybody can improve.
Yeah.
Everyone. I mean, there's not a single person alive that cannot do better. I mean, I can do better. Jason can do better. The presidents can do better, and so on. So everybody can do better. It just takes something in your inner being that says, I want to do better.
Yeah.
And use that moment to improve one little thing. And then the next day, improve two little things. And pretty soon, you're improving all around, and you'll be amazed at how good that's going to make you feel.
Yeah.
You're going to feel like you're floating at times, that you're just so excited that you're floating in the air, and man, this is great. I just can't believe how good this is. Whereas you could have gone down a different road and still be sitting in front of a game, playing and not learning anything and not improving your life. So, that's my final word, I guess. Take control of your life and improve, and you'll become happy. Become happy.
Well, and to become happy, we got to do the hard things, don't we?
We do.
Yeah.
We do. Some of them are very hard. Some are very hard.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate it. Anybody listening, I hope you've enjoyed this as much as I have and heard some of Professor Crawford's passion here. And that closing advice, I've actually heard you say similar things. I think it was like 10 years ago. Forgotten that, but I've realized that is some of the foundational advice that sent me on a good course. And so I just want to say thank you. And for the rest of anybody listening, the vision for this is that you're able to live a remarkable life. I mean, there's just no reason not to. There's the resources and the books and the e-learning and the universities and the opportunities out there, especially in construction, like Professor Crawford said, go get it. It's up to you. And I've never heard that perspective before. You're the only one that can change your life. So hopefully you share with us in this journey and you go get what you want to live a remarkable life. On we go.
Thank you very much.
Please join us next time in elevating the entire construction experience for workers, leaders, and companies coast to coast. If you're enjoying the show, please feel free to share with your construction colleagues and help us spread the word by rating, subscribing, and leaving a review on your preferred podcast listening platform. We really appreciate it. We'll catch you next time on the Elevate Construction Podcast.